Now enjoy. I know. I knew we would not leave it in there. Yeah. Be a big service today. We have a reception at Westminster Hall.
My favorite general, however, was administration was down in Chile. His name and of all the dictators that they had, not there, but Victorian army was dressed in white, you know, and that was
Yeah.
you know, I like the parade. But eventually we have to go.
Yeah.
Retired teacher. They have a
That's nice, I appreciate that.
We always.
You got a real big check. You got a real big one. Okay, because it was nice, but it wasn't big. Yeah, no. I realize it. You're a little older than I am. Well, it's one time to be a little bit older. No, it was my age.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Do we get any more? Are we actually getting something else? Well, it's the ones who retired a long time ago. They got it was okay for when they did. I've been retired.
Thank you. I'm gonna sit right in because I wanna see.
I get social.
Yeah.
What's your name? First name?
Social Security, like that. I'm Gretchen. Yeah, live on.
Nice to meet you. And I know you're a nice wife. Well, let's see here a number of times here. She's nice.
So I get to go on vacation.
No, I'm very in many ways. Just sit down and take a load out.
Yeah.
Everything that could go wrong, went wrong, I had it. This morning, but I'm here. Red hair and all, tiaras.
Have the TRS. Do we have vision on that?
Yeah, you do. Days that kill it. I brought this up before even happens. Like,
I just
everything inspires to me. So I came with wet hair. I wanted to remind my parents.
See, I get them
Yes,
I mean, glasses have gone up what it is. You know, that's my dad. Otherwise, it's that you have to face out. Yeah, no. So I haven't needed big
But lately, since I'm
Yeah. Well, I had it with my daughter.
I've been coming to Keys every time. Since October.
No, that's what he said. He says if you're starting
And
to
I find that I really enjoy it.
but you see, I know it's like I increase it. Yeah. If I know that,
Yeah.
and I do that. Yeah, I mean,
Everyone's so nice.
I've been going to certain ceremonies.
That's a requirement.
I've changed, congratulations, changed.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna sit right here. I'm just gonna walk in.
Here's 410.
I keep
There's a cave on the side.
I have Twitter, so
My God, it's still here to section. Very much. Everybody is so nice. Since my daughter. Since 1974, so I'm like, but if I'm honest, I'm really.
Oh, yeah.
So you were military or not?
Yeah, I knew them.
My brother is an army, I don't really know. He came here as a captain, as a attorney. And so that's how she's hired to do it. And then, you know, he retired from the jail. So he did very well. Of course, yeah.
yes. And how many times?
Yeah, well, he wasn't that, but he was the same range. So they're all. But he managed, it was like, he wasn't so much, he wanted it, he was very disciplined. Well, so much, and they were three children that and when I came to the doesn't work, the other two do. He says, break a phone, plug it in, dial 9. now,
So, they open up the next line, I hate them, so they're going to in there, I try to get circles around the books, and then bring everything section. With the finish there, the kids never get
I got my,
Yeah.
very late, I didn't get
Oh, yeah.
I heard something that sounded like that card, and then I counted up the H and
I can understand when people are just, when people are talking about holy words.
I just didn't put it on.
If there's coffee, then
Yes, I still go on there, and I get you some.
It is not fresh.
wow, what a nice time.
So I went up and got mine.
There's cake here, Joe. You gotta go almost all the way.
Well, good, how you doing?
This is really. Now we need a trash can. Joe running around. Where's your money? I've forgotten more than I knew. Ask it and show me.
Still positioned.
Thank you.
Just now. Good morning.
You're gonna get that calendar.
It's still morning, right? Get closer. Hello, can you hear this?
Yeah.
So, thank you for being here. As you know, we're in this room instead of the big hall, but the big hall is being used for reception this afternoon for Kay Wilkins. And just glad that you're here. Let me turn off the music. Did you like that?
I did. That was nice.
I like this mic because it has Bluetooth capabilities. So if you want to play any music off of your phone during lunch, you can connect to the Bluetooth in this and you can share the music with us. If you know how that works. If if you need a high school student to help you with that. So, well, again, welcome. Today we are celebrating our veterans, and I know that probably the majority of the folks here are veterans. At least probably the ones that are wearing red, white, and blue.
Some that are wearing black.
Or wearing a hat. So we certainly want to honor our veterans. I was listening to the radio on the way in, and the talking heads on the radio were interviewing people. Someone said that the younger veterans don't like to be thanked for their service. That they feel awkward, they don't know what to say, and it was interesting to hear. And then there was some older veterans that called in and said, "You can thank me all you want." Thank you for how you have served our country, your country, and all of us. Some announcements. Change the room and everything goes crazy. The sign-ups are all out on the table. I think if you saw them when you came in, everything is there to the end of the year. And then I'm working on, after the first year, our first meeting in January will be on the 12th. And I think that's going to be a hamburger and a movie to get started off. And I hope that everyone agrees. I have the movie Jesus Revolution. Has anybody seen that?
Jesus.
It's a good movie that comes out of the late 60s, early 70s, that kind of tracks the church in California. Help me, the name of the church. It basically it was the hippies that were coming out of Haight-Ashbury and coming to know Jesus, but they didn't have any place to go. And there was a church in Costa Mesa, Calvary Chapel, that started inviting them there, and it wreaked havoc in their church. And so it's a good movie. And I remember a lot of the events, because I was in high school then. And I remember the events, and we even had Jesus people in my high school in Wilmington, Delaware. So it's interesting, and I hope that you'll support that. So I thought it would be easy to do a hamburger movie to get kicked off, and then we'll do our birthday lunch the week after that in January. But we haven't been given the place that Nona and Darien want to go, because their birthday's in January. And they have told me places not to go, but I haven't been told where to go.
Joe, what about the play in December?
Yes, that's right,
I
that's coming.
didn't see the sign up.
It's out there, it should be out there. Okay, I'll look for it, I'll find it. But we are going to see Meet Me in St. Louis. We have 10 tickets reserved. Now, we can get more tickets than that, but we've kind of backed off on the number of tickets we've reserved, because we reserved 25 and then we reserved 20 and we only had like 15 people. So now we're being very conservative because the tickets are $26. And so if you're interested, I'll find the sign up before lunch is over. And if you're interested in going, we can always get more tickets, but we can't resell our tickets on the day of. And we've had some great times at Woodlawn Theater. So that's coming up, and we had to change the date because of the Advent Festival. Wow. I will be 70 next year, right? Maybe we need to get my brain donated. So I'll make sure that the signups are all there. How many are interested in going to Meet Me in St. Louis? 1, 2, 3, 4. So,
It's a play.
I think it's the week after the day that it was originally planned. I will get that information before we have lunch today. Also, as a committee, we've made a little bit of a change in our direction. We're not giving up on house enabling service, but there were 10 or 12 of us that went to PCHAS. And we'd like to give the opportunity to help with PCHAS. So you have a choice to take gifts for families at PCHAS, and we will also get a family from House Enabling Service and Christmas Child. We don't want to be rebels, but maybe we are being rebels. But there are folks that have really felt, so you have a choice this year. And there will be next week at our Thanksgiving, we're at lunch, we'll have a Christmas tree, and you can pick the names and gifts for children and families, and we'll figure out where they go. Because I know that women of the church do both places, and because, how many went that day? We had probably 10 or 12 at PCHAS and learned a lot about what they're doing. So just trying to broaden our influence, but not leave anybody behind. And that'll all be available next week on a Christmas tree, and you can pick gifts. And then we'll gather them on our, I think PCHAS needs to be done before our Christmas party, but I think we can do house
It
enabling.
needs to be in by
Yeah.
December 3rd.
Yeah, so I think we can gather the house enabling service gifts on our Christmas party day, but we'll need to do PCHAS gifts on the first Friday in December, and that might even make us late. But, so that's what we're planning for Christmas. The red buckets on the table are for Christmas gift for the household staff. Thank you for those of you that contributed last week. You don't have to contribute every week, but we really need everybody to pitch in if we can come up, so that we can come up with a good gift for the people that serve us so well. Okay, now, stay.
There's a little thing for the cup on the side.
Yeah, but it pulls out and then it goes down.
There you go.
I was afraid it was gonna fall off anyway. So, last year, when the rodeo was here, we had ambassadors from the rodeo, and Cheryl sat at my table. And we were talking, and she revealed that she was a veteran, that she has worked with veterans, that she now is currently involved with veterans that are suffering from PTSD, and has served. She retired from the Army after 40 years, and she's been all over the place. And while we're talking at lunch, I'm thinking, do you think you'd be available to come to speak to Keys on Veterans Day? And she said, well, I think I could. And I'm like, yes, I have Veterans Day booked. I know Pat knows, but I'm not sure that everybody knows what a real struggle sometimes it is to get speakers every week. And so when I had someone that was that far in advance, then that was a bonus. And so I'm happy to have Cheryl, we're happy to have Cheryl with us. I did have her information sheet right here. Colonel Cheryl Zeise, and she's with us today. She'll be sharing about her involvement in the military She's been all over the place, and we're just glad to have her with us. And she's also an ambassador for the rodeo. And so she's been here as a speaker for the rodeo. But Cheryl, glad that you're here. Looking forward to
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I have a little bit of a cold here, so I hope my voice will last through all of this. And my name is Cheryl Zeise. It's a hard one. It's German. I grew up in a military family, and I think my dad had a big influence on me wanting to serve as well after I saw him serve. He served in the Korean War. He's an aviation mechanic. So I joined in 1976. It was still called the Women's Army Corps. We weren't allowed to be in the military with the men yet. So I joined, and I actually started out with the Army band as a flute and piccolo player, but I soon found that that was not my thing. Standing out on a parade field in the winter with the fingers cut out of your gloves trying to play a piccolo was pretty tough. So went on, and some fun stories over time. I was in the National Guard, went to college in North Dakota. There was no band where I was in North Dakota. So I found this combat engineer battalion. They said, "Oh, come on in. We'll train you as a medic." So they trained me as a medic, and for 4 years I was a medic. Until this general came along and said, "Honey, what unit are you in?" I'm like, "Sir, I'm in this unit, sir." He goes, "No, honey, what unit are you assigned to?" I'm like, "Sir, I'm assigned to this unit." He goes, "You can't be assigned to this unit. It's a combat engineer battalion. Only men can be assigned to this unit." I don't know how they were carrying me on the bus, but I had to reclass into personnel, which actually was a good thing. I became a personnel NCO. And it was a good career after that. Wound up switching to going to officer candidate school, and then switching to the Army Reserve, and then eventually going on active duty. So I have 41 total years and 27 active duty. So some of the things that I've noticed over the years is my dad never talked about the Korean War. I knew he went, but every time we would try and talk to him about it, he would deflect. My mom told me a few things about, some of when he came back from Korea and had some nightmares and stuff, but he would never talk about it. So that was pretty interesting to me that, a lot of people are very proud of their service, and he still served and he retired out of the National Guard later on when he came off active duty, went to the National Guard. But he would talk about all the stories from that, but he would never talk about Korea. And that puzzled me. So as I went on in my career and got to meet more veterans, especially coming in right after Vietnam, we know how many Vietnam vets do we have in here? We know that wasn't a very popular war. So it was not really easy coming into the military when it was not a popular thing to do. But I met a lot of people, met a lot of veterans. And a lot of them who were in the heat of things would never talk about it. So again, that was real surprising to me. I didn't think they'd be proud of their service, but there was something else going on in their lives. So I went to officer candidate school, and they are going to branch me as a medical service corps officer. And while we were there, they have these fun little traditions. I don't know if anyone go to officer candidate school. These academies have different traditions. So one of them is the senior class would come up with this goofy award that would be given to the plebes, the junior class. Ours happened to be a helmet, was a white helmet with orange hair and a horn on the top and a big clown tie. And it was the Bozo Award. Now everyone in my plebe class had to have this crazy award, wear it for a day, but all the whatever crazy traditions they wanted you to do with it. And you couldn't get rid of it in our class, so everyone had worn it. Well, the day I got to wear it, I happened to be in a leadership role. I was the company commander. I'm like, wow. So here I am, the company commander of these 2 platoons, marching around, running around with this goofy thing on my head. What was hard is that night, I had to stand in front of the entire military academy, it's all the NCO schools as well, out on the parade field and do retreat. So I'm thinking, how am I gonna do this? So anyways, I went, I thought, I'm just gonna pretend like I have no idea what they're laughing at. Because if I go out there and think about it, I'm gonna fall apart. And so far, my other colleagues that were in class had not done a perfect retreat. And so we get in trouble if we don't do it. Excuse me. So I went out there and just pretended I didn't have this thing on my head, and I did a flawless retreat. I could hear everyone laughing, but I, again, just pretended this wasn't on my head. So that night, they counsel you after your leadership position. And he said, we were sure you were just going to fall apart out there, because that's a lot of pressure to go out in front of all those people with that on your head. He said, obviously you figured out what it's all about. I'm like, no, I have no idea what it's all about. He said, there's times when you're in the heat of battle and you see one of your colleagues fall, or one of your soldiers fall. But the mission has to go on, and so this is to kind of train you to have like a monkey on your back, knowing that you still have to push forward and go on. So here was the first chance I saw. So they're asking us to push it all down, to move forward and push whatever's going on. Any trauma experience has to be pushed away. I'm so sorry.
There's a cough drop
Wow.
Do you need something warm? Perhaps. Is there coffee in
These colds, I don't know.
there? Those do help sometimes, the cough drop. You already have one in here.
Already have one of them.
Oh, okay.
A sip of coffee.
Yeah, that'll.
Either that or all of them have sympathetic coughs here.
I
feel mine, Roger.
Right.
And I have these awful fishermen lozenges that smell awful, but they don't. But they're not.
Thank you. So, long story short, I started wondering what was out there to help us with those who have trauma, that have pushed it down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we need to let you, your health is more important than.
Yeah, right.
You can make that call.
Well, she coughs and peace. Could somebody explain to me what she means by retreat? I'm not familiar with that.
About what?
Retreat, what does that mean?
Oh, it's a ceremony at the end of the day where they pull the flag.
Oh.
And when
The
you're,
flag is lowered.
and when you're in academy, like the majority of people are required to be present during the retreat. Everyone is there in the required formation. There's often the sounding of taps or the bugle sounds. The flag is lowered, folded, and retired for the night. And then everybody is dismissed. But it's done every evening at a certain time.
Oh, thank you.
I have the drop drop.
Oh, I got one, thank you.
Okay. Well.
Go for three, right?
I'll try.
What kind do you
So
have?
doing a perfect retreat with
What
this
kind
apparatus
do you
on your
have?
head.
Yeah.
Put you in kind of that awkward position, I think you're alluding to, that many people war had to accept for.
I got this tickle in my throat.
Yeah, it's horrible.
You know what that means?
This is another, I'm sorry.
We're gonna have you drugged up.
We got all kinds of stuff.
We'll have you drugged up. You wanna take the rest of your voice and I can do something else?
Here
comes Robin, the.
There you
Throat
go.
coats.
Go,
For
Robin.
singers.
Yay, Robin.
It's just a doctor.
Thank you.
She's got
Okay.
And now we have the sympathetic cough study.
I'm clearing my throat.
So I had some, we've been resting on the gifts that we bought several years ago when I first got here for our veterans. This year is something brand new. So if you have gotten a gift over the last 7 years, you may have gotten repeats over the years. That doesn't mean we're any less thankful for you and any less appreciative for your service. But this year, I have something that is different. It's new, but it's not the same gift as you've gotten other times over the past 7 years. So if I can have everyone stand who is a veteran. Or if you don't want to stand up, hold your hand up. Thank you.
You're tall, drink of water or coffee or something. You're tall. It's a long way to stand up.
No, you can
You got your speed.
Thank you for your service.
Easy down here if you need help.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, my best friend was in
And other years, we've had music going and someone singing all the songs for all branches of the service. And it's been a fun thing that we've done, but this year doesn't mean we don't appreciate you. So thank you for your service, and we appreciate how you have served your country and how you've served us. Thank you so much. Is there anyone who would want to share something about your service? Or maybe a spouse of someone who followed their serviceman around. I know I've heard many stories from many of you over the years that I've been here.
I'm the daughter of a career Army colonel and a career PhD. My mom was a historian, both out of Washington, D.C. And one of my favorite memories growing up in a military family was, as a little girl going to summer camp, we all learned how to fold the flag. We all learned how to do that perfectly and tuck in and so I just wanted to share that.
I learned how to do that in Boy Scouts.
Huh?
I learned how to do that in Boy Scouts.
Oh, yeah.
And when we would, any other thoughts or sharing of significant moments
I'll share one. I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed at the Air Force Academy. And I was one of the people chosen to help integrate the women into the military. So I went to different meetings with the Navy and all that, and then we set up our programs to try to help the girls be integrated into the military.
I'll share one thing that was from not on Panam, and I've shared it with Joe before, but when I was stationed at MKT, that's northeastern Thailand, there was a flower that used to be there. There was a soldier that was actually standing at the position of attention for the first 6 months that I was at that base. And one day, the colonel came up to my alarm room. And he said, Sergeant Ryan, can you tell me, I guess somebody down there told me I knew everything. Can you tell me what that soldier is standing in the middle of the field at the position of attention? And why is he there? And I said, well, sir, 3 years before I came to this base, the Queen of Thailand, Queen Sirkit, arrived at the base. It was the first time she had been in that part of Thailand, where the winter palace was. And so her eyes fell on this beautiful flower. It was the only flower there. And she made mention that she loved that flower. A guard was stationed at the flower that 3 years previous to make sure that nobody stepped on it. 3 years later, the colonel was up there, and I informed him about it. And he said to me, he said, well, I think that soldier can go somewhere else. He went downstairs, an order was given, and that was that. But it was something that I will never forget, because he had come up there to find out why that was done. So that was one of my happy memories.
My father was in the Army, and one of his assignments that I'll always remember, he was stationed in Vienna, Austria after the war. And his job was to restore the Austrian postal service for all of Austria. And of course, my mother and my sister and my grandmother, actually, we all went to Vienna for 2 years and lived in Vienna, explored Vienna, lots of wonderful times there, and a lot of sad times too. But we were there for 2 years, and I have lots of wonderful memories of being there and lots of experiences. I did go back 2 or 3 times. I took Dick up back 1 year.
Anyone else?
My father, when he returned from from World War II, never really spoke of it unless he was somehow with someone who he served with, and then they would be off somewhere talking together. And I know they were exchanging experiences and memories, but not with our family did he ever really share. Not with the kids anyway, we didn't hear anything along that line. But looking back and remembering comments and things along the way, my father was raised in a Christian household. He went to Europe to fight. When he came back, I would say that in many respects, he was experiencing what we would call that dark moment of the soul, or however you want to phrase it. A lot of the things that he had believed kind of automatically as a child were tested. And I can remember my mother saying, I didn't know if he would ever take communion again. And then as I remember, he really didn't. He was there, but I don't remember him ever doing that until I was in high school. And whatever happened at that moment in his life, he became active in his Sunday school class again, active for a very conservative gentleman. But he did start taking communion again. And I'm thinking that had to be almost 15 years after his experience in World War II and what he saw and participated in Europe, before those things were resolved in his heart and his belief again. When Harold and I married, Vietnam was going on, so he was commissioned in the ROTC program, like a lot of guys were, and did his service during Vietnam on the intelligence side of that, training and assignments, other places supporting, but not actually on the ground in Vietnam. So we were spared those kinds of experiences to have to live with. But you realize everyone shares a bit of that. So the work that you were doing that was affecting decisions that other people were making that were affecting other people's lives is something that does have to be put in some kind of perspective. So holding on to one's faith or returning to it can be quite a challenge. And some do it successfully, and some never finds them to hold on to again. So I can appreciate the work that you were doing to help people try to find their foundation again.
You've heard me talk about NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and several years ago, we found that so many veterans suffer from PTSD, and many of the homeless, because we're a church of the city, are veterans who just haven't found their way since then. So NAMI has programs on Homefront, which is for family members, and then they have classes and they have therapies you probably know about for the returning veterans. And for my personal life, my father had yellow jaundice when he was 17, and he was not able to he couldn't enlist in the army or anything. And I always remember my mother talking to us at family reunions and things, because my father felt so bad that he hadn't served. And all the other people were talking about where they had gone. And so that I always felt bad for my dad, because he wanted to go, but he wasn't able. So he ended up building roads and things we all learned about the Roosevelt projects and everything. And so he did a lot of good things, but I don't think that he thought that he had done enough for the country.
I had my grandfather was a private soldier in the Philippines during the Philippine Resurrection, not Resurrection. Anyway, he served in a company, or his army was commanded by General Leonard Wood of Fort fame. And if you recall, Leonard Wood was the commander of Teddy Roosevelt's army in Cuba. And so anyway, make a long story short, my grandfather was part of the 30% of Leonard Wood's command that contacted dysentery in the Philippines and had to be shipped back home. My cousin of mine, and I researched that information back then, his pension was $6 a month.
Oh, wow.
For many years. He was born 1883, he lived till 1948. So.
Wow.
It was interesting service he had.
Want me to try and talk with you? Is everyone done sharing, or someone else want to share?
Mine are too body to be told in polite society.
Oh.
Or in mixed company.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for priming the pump. We need to do this more often.
Yeah.
Next year, we won't have a guest speaker. We'll just have we'll have a panel of experts from within, and get to hear some of the stories that you all carry around with you. Thank you for sharing.
Trial. So I'm going to kind of fast forward, because I don't know how long this will last, but I started researching, trying to find out what are other ways that we can help people with PTSD, or people who experience trauma in general. Because holding it in and talk therapy doesn't always work really good. So I found an organization that teaches trauma-sensitive yoga. Yoga is a good practice, it's a physical practice, but this trauma-sensitive yoga deals with people who have experienced trauma. Because your body remembers, even if your mind wants to forget, your body holds all that in. So I started exploring it, and actually wound up going to school and getting trained, and started a class called Warrior Restore. So it was a gentle yoga class for about 40 minutes. And then we added into it what's called Yoga Nidra. Well, the Army actually did use Yoga Nidra, but they wouldn't call it yoga. They called it eye rest. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But it's a guided meditation that helps put the individual into a totally relaxed, almost between sleep and wake, so that their body can start to relax and to heal. Because your body can't heal if it's always tensed up. And every time you think about that trauma, you're tensed up. We used to do, I'm a licensed professional counselor as well, EMDR, which was like an eye movement desensitization that we would do, and that works with some people. But when I developed this class and started teaching it, I was really shocked at the results for these patients. Some of them, I had one young lady in my class, very small class, and she, during the class, just rolled over and started crying. And I don't know what her trauma was. I don't ask them what their traumas are. And after class, she goes, I don't know what that was, but I feel great. I feel like something I've always held on to has now been released.
Wow.
So I want to tell you about one of my students that really convinced me that this is something that'll work. I got a call from a psychiatrist who had a patient, a soldier, who was shot in the left side of his head. So he was paralyzed on his right side. They had put him into a medical coma for a year to allow his brain to heal. When he came out, his speech was very limited. He could say yes, no, or maybe. Said, I'd like to see if yoga would work for him. I heard that you have this class that you work with, people who have trauma. I said, by all means, have him come. So his mother brought him. He had some kind of a pump, I don't know, maybe you can explain it, in his leg that kind of made his paralyzed leg kind of like a Gumby leg, so he could put some weight on it. And he had like a one-handed walker, and he could walk. I had, used a chair for some of the things that he couldn't do, some of the poses that he couldn't do, he used a chair to do instead, but he was real game to try and do everything that we could do. So we did the yoga, we put him in what's called Shavasana. Basically, they're lying on their back in a supported way, very relaxed, and then we start the Yoga Nidra. And it's a script I wrote that kind of helps go through the body to relax, from head to foot, to relax everything. And then just very affirming, supportive, safe language in it. And then in the background, I played what's called binary music. It's basically tones that interact with your neural receptors in your brain. It activates both left and right. Because the trauma gets stuck in one side of your head. And it can't complete. It hits like a roadblock because those neural receptors won't let it finish. I dealt with a rape patient who she would keep experiencing the rape over and over again. And with the EMDR, I was able to help her to transfer it to let the rape complete. And then once she could do it over and over and over again, she was desensitized so she could still remember it, but without all the physical attributes that were going on. So this music kind of does the same thing. It activates those neural receptors. It actually helps people who have diabetic neuropathy with the pain levels that they feel. I used it on some of it with great results too. But this young guy that was in there, he did the class, he responded real well the first time. He walked out of the class and his mother looked at him and said, so how was it? And he broke out into a big smile. And she started crying. I'm like, what's going on? And she said, it's the first time I've seen him smile in over 3 months. She said he has nightmares all the time. He's tense all the time. She goes, this is the first therapy I've seen. And this was just one session. So he started coming twice a week. And about 3 months later, his psychiatrist called me and said, whatever you're doing, how he's coming twice a week, can you do a third class and have him come 3 times a week? I'm like, okay, so I talked to the studio and they allowed me to have a third class. So he started coming 3 times a week. And his language went from yes, no, and maybe to small sentences. Eventually, he was starting to tell some jokes. He had a really dry sense of humor, right? And the other veterans in the class would sit with him sometimes afterwards and they would start to talk. So by the time, unfortunately, the studio wound up closing about a year later. And so he lived pretty far away from me, so I couldn't continue with him in the class there. But by that time, he was telling us jokes, he could speak. He wanted to learn how to drive the truck that the military had given him. It had all the hand controls. though his mom was driving it right now, and he was doing so much better. I ran into him, believe it or not, like 3 months ago at the VA. I saw both he and his mother, and I went up to him, and I don't want to use his name for privacy reasons, but we'll call him Bob. I said, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" He goes, "I'm doing really well, thank you." So he was, his mom said his verbal communication was doing better. I know during the time I worked with him, his nightmares went away, he was sleeping better, he was more engaged and wanting to be engaged with the public, whereas before, his psychiatrist told me he did a year of talk therapy with him. Of course, he couldn't talk very well, and he saw no improvement in his depression or anything else. So I've seen he was probably my most remarkable case, but there is a place for different types of medicine, and I think, or therapy, for treating PTSD. It doesn't just have to be talk therapy or EMDR. So if you could talk to vets about finding the one that works for them. Now, this worked for a lot of my, people that took my class, but it may not work for everyone, but I still am a strong believer in it. So I wanted to share that with you because trauma, it gets stuck in you, you know? My dad, he's a veteran from the Korean War, and I was telling Pastor Joe, he never talked about it. When he would try and talk to him about, he would tell stories about his other, after the war, I'm sure some of those body stories too, but he would never talk about Korea. My dad is 86, and I had the privilege of helping my parents move. They lived in 22 acres of woodland up in northern Minnesota, and they loved it. They were hunters, fishers, they grew their own vegetables, they loved it up there, but after COVID, it was pretty tough being out in the middle of nowhere, and they decided to move back to our family. So being retired, I went and spent 14 weeks helping them go through their house and selling things off, and then moving them down to a little twin home in Minnesota, closer to my brothers and sisters. During that time, my dad opened up a little bit here and there about some of what went on in Korea. But it was interesting. I went to visit them in September, and I got up one morning. My dad was really standing in the kitchen and just not moving, not doing anything. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" And he said, "I had a nightmare." He said, and he was like, "I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means." And I put my arms out, and he came and cried. Well, then he sat down and started telling me what went on in Korea. For the first time, he's 86. And he had held that in for all those years and didn't know how to finally let it go. So I really want you to encourage anyone who has experienced any kind of trauma. It doesn't have to be war trauma. It could be a car accident or something traumatic that happened to them, to try and deal with it as soon as possible, because if we can let it go sooner, our bodies will heal, our minds will heal, and we'll have a much better life. So that's one of the things I guess I wanted to talk to you today.
Well, Colonel, thank you for pushing through and making it through. I hope you didn't feel obligated to us. We were really feeling it with you.
Well, it's an important message. So.
And thank you so much for pushing through and being here with us today. And again, to our veterans and veteran families, I was confused by the radio show that I heard this morning. I'm going to keep thanking veterans for their service. And if they get upset with me, then they get upset with me.
Joe, I don't think it's the fact that the expression has become a little routine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to thank a young veteran, you might think of 10 different ways you could say it.
Yeah, and that was a suggestion that was made this morning.
Joe, I'll say something concerning what you said there. Where I came from was Independence, Kansas. I was born here, but I lived up there for 11 years with my grandparents. When I got back from my service, to this day, when I visit and have my hat on or something like this, no one says thank you for your service. And when I got down here, I was appreciative people saying, thank you for your service. And I don't understand why they don't do it up there, but they did. So thought I'd add that to what you said. Keep it up.
And it could just be a personal thing.
I think it's San Antonio and being surrounded by a military presence for everyone's lifetime. Fort Sam has been here longer than our grandparents were here. So it's an awareness that service is going on, and then things bring it to the fore. I think this town responds to that.
That's why over 60% of the people whose last duty station is Fort Sam or Lackland retire in San
I stay here.
How many of you did that?
My family.
So,
Could I ask Cheryl?
yes, you may.
What kind of music do you use when you have these sessions? What is the background environment?
Usually I use, for the yoga class, I use music that's kind of gentle for yoga. For the yoga nidra, it's called binary beats. And it's actually tones, it's not actually music, but it sounds like music.
Is it like a chant, like a?
No, I don't do chants in there because I'm not sure who everyone is. Yoga was actually an exercise. Some religions have adopted it into their religions, but it was never a religion to start with. But no, I don't use chants. It's a script that I wrote that kind of does the body relaxation, and then it's just very affirming things that I say that kind of, where they're in between sleep and wakefulness.
You talk to them at the same time?
Yeah, so I'm reading this. But, so 30 minutes of yoga nidra is equal to 3 hours of quality sleep.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And I think it's always tonal. It's non-human sound. It's tonal sound, right? That change.
Different
Like a hum
frequencies, yeah. I mean, I have it on my phone, if anyone later wants to listen.
Yeah.
But it's good because it interacts with the neuroreceptors in the nervous system to calm you. Yeah.
Well, I think we're ready. I think our salads and things are out there. You need to know that this is a very, very busy day for our household staff. So I told them that we could fend for ourselves in some ways. Now, I'm not expecting you to go pick up your own meal, but we've got, we'll take care of it together. And you all know what the service for Kay Wilkins this afternoon is likely to be a big one because of his influence and what he's done. So we'll be praying for his family. And so it's a big day for our staff here. And so what I'm saying is, let's be cutting them some slack today.
Well, I can help with salads for this day.
So let me pray.
Any update on Bob Fuller's dad?
It's likely that his dad will need to go into some kind of assisted living. And Bob would like to have that settled before he comes back. I haven't heard anything today yet, but his plan was to come back on Sunday, not to preach, but to be here for next week. So I don't know if any of that's changed yet, but they are looking for someplace assisted living for him. He's not going to be able to live on his own. But he did have heart issues, and that's why Bob went. And so he's not going to be able to take care of himself in his own apartment. And Bob's brother is there as well. Bob's brother lives close by. So keep praying for the Fuller family and for his dad. Okay, let's pray together and we'll have lunch. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for Cheryl coming and sharing pictures and glimpses of her life and her service. Thank you for the work that she's doing in the hearts and lives or has done and is continuing to do in the hearts and lives of so many veterans and so many needs. Pray that you would work through whatever she does to help veterans who are struggling with PTSD and other aspects of having been in war zones and having served. And we just pray for their mental health and that you would continue to work through her. We lift her up to you. Pray for your healing in her life and with this cold. Thank you for today. Thank you for the time that we've been able to share together. Thank you for the fellowship that we share every Friday around these tables. Pray that that would be the same today. We ask your blessing on the food and the hands that have prepared it and all who will be involved in serving it. Thank you that we can come together every week and enjoy fellowship and enjoy community together. And thank you for today. Pray for the Wilkins family today as they celebrate Kay's life and be with them in a special way. Go before us today in everything that we do and say. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, they're gonna start, but everybody sit down.
We're gonna say.
I have damp hair and that's
Richard, do you want to say that?
Yeah, I'll say it.